Hi, this is Bruce Buffer, your voice of the Octagon, and you're listening to MMA Mental.
Welcome to MMA Victor Roundtable. Once again, myself, Brooks Bailey, and UFC middleweight and top 17 standout Luke Barnatt are here to break down the best fights on UFC 161. We have hand selected the 5 main card fights and probably our favourite fight of the night. The preliminary card Facebook bout between Mitch Clarke and John Maguire. Of course, John Maguire representing the UK in the Tsunami Gym. We're going to talk. They are the fights we're going to talk about. As always, I'm joined by Luke. Thanks for joining us, Luke.
It's good to be. I'm calling all the way from Canada because I'm here with John Maguire at the moment, getting ready for the fight. So it's good to keep this going.
Brilliant. We appreciate that. We appreciate your time. I know it's a big week for John. Brooks, thank you for joining us, mate.
Appreciate.
Okay, right. Let's jump straight in then. We're going to start with the preliminary card fight. Mitch Clarke, who's obviously Canadian, fighting John Maguire, dropping down to lightweight for the first time. This will be his UFC lightweight debut. John is currently 2-2 in the UFC, but it's fair to say that he's faced much tougher opposition in the UFC than what Mitch Clarke has faced. I don't think Mitch Clarke's faced anyone with the skills that John's got personally. I think that we're going to see Maguire take it to the ground and we're going to see him using his jiu-jitsu like we did against DeMarcus Johnson. I'm going to go with Maguire round 2 submission. Maybe we'll see another round bar. Luke, what are your thoughts on this fight?
I mean, obviously, I'm very close to John. Me and John are like best friends, and we train together. We're both at the Tsunami Gym in Cambridge. So, I spent 3 months with the guy in America getting ready for this fight. And I'm obviously going to say John's going to win, but I'll break it down a little bit more than that. John, like you said, John's 2-2. He's always competed in the UFC at welterweight, and he's always been too small for the weight. So now the fact he's dropping down to lightweight, where a lot of people have always said he belongs, and now he's there, and he believes he belongs there as well. And I just feel like this is John's time now. He's put so much effort into making this weight, and he's changed the way he lives, he's changed the way he thinks about fighting, and everything in his life has changed for this, this opportunity to fight at lightweight. And they're both fighting for their lives because John's on a 2-fight losing streak. So this will be 3 and he'll be out, and so is Mitch Clarke. But the thing important to note here is Mitch Clarke is 9-2, but his 2 losses both came in the UFC, and they're the only fights he's ever had in the UFC. So he's not actually won a fight in the UFC yet. And I really believe that, he's not UFC ready, and John really is. So I think John's going to take this, and I think it's going to be in emphatic fashion. I think it'll be round 2, either a submission or ground and pound, or it could be round 1, depending on, how big the mismatch is, but we'll have to see.
Brooks, what are your views on Mitch Clarke versus John Maguire?
Yeah, I got to agree with both of you guys. I think Maguire is on another level than Mitch Clarke. He's like Luke said, he's been fighting at 170 this whole time. Even at 170, he was winning fights. Even when he was losing the fights, he was just getting, laid on, it seemed like to me. When you got the bigger guys like Matt Riddle and Hathaway, of course, when, they can just hold you down, and you're a weight class above where you probably should be. I think that was just working as too much of a disadvantage for him. I think at 155 he's gonna make a big splash. He's got the ground game. Obviously we've all seen it, but I don't think Mitch Clarke is going to be able to hold his own. I think Maguire's going to come in there. He's going to get the submission in either the first or second round.
Okay, all 3 of us agreeing there that Maguire's going to get the stoppage, either round 1 or round 2. We'll move on to the UFC 161 main card. The first fight up wasn't originally a main card fight, but there's obviously been there's been a few movements around on this fight on this card with fights being cancelled. So this is a heavyweight bout between Pat Barry and Sean Jordan. I think it's fair to say from both these guys we've seen that they're both finishers, they're both power strikers. I think Barry is probably a lot better technically than Sean Jordan with his background in kickboxing. He's got brilliant leg kicks. Jordan hits hard. He's just a very aggressive striker. I'm going to go with Pat Barry on this fight. I think it's going to be a very exciting fight. I think it will make it to round 2, but I don't think it will make it to the 3rd round. I think Barry will chop him down with leg kicks, and eventually he'll get a knockout. I can see Barry really putting it on. He looked great in his last fight, and I'll see, Barry knockout against Sean Jordan. Luke, what are your views on this fight?
Well, Sean Jordan's a fantastic athlete for a heavyweight. There's heavyweight's a really strange weight class because you get people out there, like Roy Nelson and people like that who you wouldn't really consider athletes. Obviously, they're great MMA fighters, but Sean's definitely an athlete. He comes from an athletic background, and he's a big, strong, athletic guy. Having said that, I think Pat Barry just has such a wide repertoire on the feet, and he's been doing it for so much longer, and he's crazy. I mean, if you ever followed Pat Barry's career and his blogs and all the rest of it, he is mental. I just think Pat Barry's going to touch him on the chin and it'll be over, to be honest. I think he's a lot craftier, and like you said, the leg kicks come into play, and I just think he's a better mixed martial artist than but if Sean lands a punch, it could be different. So it's hard to say, but I reckon it'll definitely be a knockout, and Pat Barry will be the winner.
Brooks, what are your views on this fight?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go in the other direction from you guys. I figured, I know that Pat Barry is the big favorite going into this fight. I just think that, I think I'm complete opposite of what Luke said. I just think Sean Jordan's more well-rounded. Pat Barry's a striker. I mean, he obviously is the better striker of these two guys, and, if he starts landing, it won't last long for Sean. But, any fighter by now should know, that's what Pat Barry does. And, you got to avoid it at all costs. If anything, try to get the fight to the mat, something, just avoid striking with this guy. But, like Luke said, Jordan's a hell of an athlete. He's, doing backflips in the cage after a win, or that's crazy for a heavyweight. But, and what a fight he had with Mike Russo too. He took a lot of damage in that first round, came back, in the second round and ended up getting a stoppage. That was one of the best comebacks we had seen, so far this year. I just think that, he comes from a great camp also. He's training with Greg Jackson. They always come in with great game plans. I guess aside from someone like Leonard Garcia, who just goes out there and wings it. But, I think he's going to come in, he's going to play it real smart. And, I think he's going to get this fight to the mat. He's a great wrestler. Sean Jordan's a great wrestler. I think he's going to get this fight to the mat, and, he'll probably mount Barry, and he'll get the stoppage with some strikes or a submission on the ground.
Okay, so we've got two people siding with Pat Barry, and we've got Brooks siding with Sean Jordan. Okay, we're going to move on to the women's bantamweight fight between Canada's Alexis Davis and the first UK woman to fight in the UFC, Rosie Sexton. I'll have to be honest, I've spoke with Rosie a couple of times. I spoke with her just after this announcement. I'm really pleased to see that she's in the UFC. She's been on the scene, women's MMA scene, for such a long time. I mean, she's had 2 losses, and one of the losses is to Gina Carano. So I think it shows you how long that Rosie's been around. I mean, she is a phenomenal athlete and a phenomenal fighter. She's only had the 2 losses, and like I say, one was to Gina Carano, one was to Folia Gurgal, who of course is another top women's athlete. I really am going to be siding with Rosie. I mean, Alexis has got a hell of a background in BJJ, but I think Rosie's going to do what she needs to do to win. I think she'll look to keep the fight up, even though she's got a great ground game herself, and I think she'll win an exciting decision. I think she'll pepper her on the feet, be able to stay away from any submissions, and I'm going to side with Rosie winning a unanimous decision. Luke, what's your views on this fight?
Rosie getting to the UFC is quite an exciting thing. It's obviously with the explosion of female MMA happening. It's great to have a UK representative there in Rosie, and Rosie's a great representative of the sport in general. She writing about how the sport is and trying to change the view of it here in England, because in England the view's not quite got there like it has in the States about it being a real sport. It's still a bit of a blood sport in England, and Rosie's very vocal about trying to change that. She's a very intelligent woman, and I'm a fan of hers, so it's difficult to be unbiased about it. I watched her fight. Her last fight was over in Cage Warriors in Dublin, I believe, where it was, and I saw her fight, and it was a ferocious fight. And every time I watch her fight, it makes me think, I hope men are watching this and realise this is how you do it. So I'm going to have to go with Rosie without a doubt, and I think it will be the decision. Rosie's grappling is one of her strengths, like you said, with her opponent being such a good ground fighter. I think she's going to avoid that at all costs, and I think she'll just pepper out the decision as well. I completely agree with you.
Brooks, what are your view on this fight?
I think this, like a lot of the women's fights, I think this is going to be a fight of the night contender. I think it's going to be a lot of back and forth. I don't want to count out Davis because, man, she's a warrior herself. She's gone up a lot against a lot of good competition, and her losses, they aren't to just some scrubs. She's losing to the top names up there, which, and she's also got some wins against some great names, Julie Kedzie and Shayna Baszler, so, she shouldn't be counted out, man, it's just, it's hard to go against Rosie. She's such a great fighter. She's been around for a long time. And, I'm pretty sure Davis is going to go into this as the underdog. And, I picked Sean Jordan, the underdog in the last fight. And, I think that I'm going to go again with the upset here. I think, we're going to see, Alexis Davis, pull off the win here. And, I'm probably going to say by decision.
Okay, so once again we've got the two Brits siding with Rosie Sexton, and we've got Brooks, who we're not going to allow on the show next week, siding with siding with Alexis Davis. Okay, next up then we move up to a light heavyweight bout between Ryan Jimmo and Igor Pokrajac. These are two guys that have shown to be really good strikers, really aggressive strikers. I mean, Ryan Jimmo had a really good fight with James Tahuna back in London and dropped him with a head kick, but obviously went on to lose his decision. Igor Pokrajac has looked great on the feet, but we've seen him against Vinny Magalhaes, and for whatever reason he decided to try and grapple with him, which was never the smartest thing to do with somebody who's got his high level of grappling when you're not a high level grappler yourself. I think this is a really difficult fight to pick because both of these guys have looked good, and at the same time both these guys have looked average as well. But I'm going to go with Jimmo. I mean, his debut against Pokrajac was absolutely mental, with it like being a 7-second knockout. I think they're going to stand and bang, and I think Jimmo will find a way and he'll land a punch and he'll get the knockout. Again, it's always hard to pick a round. I'll pick round two, but yeah, my thoughts on this are Ryan Jimmo round two knockout. Luke, what are your views on this fight?
I mean, an interesting fact about Jimmo from the that I learned on the Ultimate Fighter is he actually fought one of my teammates on the show, Zach Cummings. Zach should be a welterweight, but he was fighting middleweight on the show, and he fought Jimmo at light heavyweight. It was on, I can't remember what show it was on, and they went 5 rounds. I mean, Zach's pretty good, but for Jimmo to be naturally such a bigger man, I feel like, in my opinion, I was there at the James Tahuna fight with Jimmo, and I feel like he's a one-round fighter. I feel like he is very athletic, very explosive, but if he doesn't get the job done in the first round, I think he can crumble, and that's when he begins to struggle. And I think Igor's gonna last a round, so I'm gonna go with Igor on this one. Probably a 3rd round finish of some description. I don't know how exactly. I think a TKO, probably ground pound. But yeah, that's what I think. I think Jimmo, the James Tahuna fight was great. He impressed me in that fight, but he couldn't finish Tahuna, and Tahuna came back and got the win, and I think that's probably what's going to happen in this one too.
Brooks, what are your views on this fight?
you know, before Ryan Jimmo made it to the UFC, it was like, man, he didn't seem like the most exciting fighter, and a lot of his fights were going, I think like 7 out of his previous 9 fights had all gone to a decision, and he had won all of them. You know, but it's just like he came into the UFC, he knocked out Feroce in like 7 seconds, which was just ridiculous. It was great knockout, great celebration afterwards. And, you know, he came in and kicked the Huna right in the damn head and about had him out in the first round. And you know, it's just such a surprise to me personally, because, you know, I had been watching him over in MFC and he wasn't doing anything exciting. He was doing just enough to win decisions, you know, against, you know, Terry Sokaju and like Luke said, Zach Cummings and, you know, Wilson Gavea. I mean, he had some names on that, list of people he was taking out, but, you know, it was just doing enough, you know, through 3 rounds or 5 rounds or whatever it was to win decisions. You know, he wasn't coming out and knocking people out in the first round like he's been showing he's, you know, able to do here in the UFC, which is just crazy to me. But anyway, you know, Igor Pokrajac, he's got heavy hands. He likes to stand and brawl. I don't think, you know, personally, I don't think Ryan Jimmo is going to want to do that. You know, who knows? Like I said, he's been surprising me lately with what he's been doing. But I think Jimmo comes in here. I think he takes this fight down, you know, and, you know, maybe he will stand for a while and maybe he won't like what he's getting on the other end of the striking. So I don't think he's going to do it for long if he does. I think Jimmo's going to take this fight to the mat, and I think he's going to write out a decision. I'll take Jimmo by unanimous decision.
Okay, so we've got 2 people picking Ryan Jimmo. I'm going for stoppage with Brooks going for decision, and then we've got Luke sticking with Igor Pokrajac. Okay, we move on to a heavyweight bout. This is a bit of a short notice fight because of fights that have been cancelled for injuries. Stipe originally was due to face Sao Pelele on the prelims, but instead he steps up and takes on big country Roy Nelson. Roy Nelson's been on a hell of a run. I think Czech Congo lasted for 2 punches, and obviously now he's facing Stipe Miocic. I've got to be honest, I love watching Roy Nelson fight. He might not be the most athletic guy. He might not look like he should be a fighter. But the fact of the matter is, he gets in there. He's got one of the best chins in the heavyweight division. I mean, the guy can take punishment, and when he lands, he's got to be one of the hardest hitters in that division as well. And I just see again, Stipe won't be able to take Nelson down because Nelson's got a solid ground game anyway. Plus, because of his size, he's very hard to unbalance. And if Nelson starts boxing with Stipe, he only needs to land that punch once, and I don't see Stipe lasting. I mean, Nelson hits like a truck. So I'm going to go with Nelson, round 1 knockout with his overhand like he likes to throw. And I don't think it will last 2 minutes personally. Nelson round 1. Luke, what's your views on this fight?
I saw Stipe fight in England. He fought Stefan Struve. And, you know, that it was quite an exciting fight in a way. And I think that was when he was undefeated and it was his first loss. I think he's come back and fought since then. And Roy Nelson is a much bigger test than that is. Like you said, the guy's a black belt on the ground. He's you know, he's a tough one. You know, people look at him and they think, you know, who the hell is this guy? You know, he should be in the UFC, but I think he's won his last 2 or 3 fights by knockout, if that's right. You know, he's just a crazy guy and a great guy to watch. I think the same. I think Roy Nelson's gonna knock him out. Like, yeah, it's crazy because you know what he's gonna do. And you think, well, I should probably stay away from that right hand. But yeah, it just lands. You know, because I think he throws it with such confidence. And I think Stipe is going to do the same thing. I don't think he's going to want to take it to the ground. I think he's going to mess around on the feet and get knocked out. And you know, I think if JDS can't knock out Roy Nelson, then who can? You know, and Stipe is definitely not going to do it. So I'm going Nelson round 1 or round 2 by knockout.
Brooks, what are your views on this fight?
Man, this fight sucks for me, man. I love both these guys. Stipe's from Ohio, just like I am. Big country, always been a huge fan of him. It annoys me to no end that Dana White is always on his case. But, man, I mean, you're just not going to knock out Roy Nelson, obviously. I think Stipe's strength is in his striking, but he's also a great wrestler too. I mean, we can't take that away from him. But as both of you have said, Nelson's ground game is nothing to be fooled around with. For such a big guy, you wouldn't think that he's got great jiu-jitsu or anything, but he's got great grappling. Man, I don't want to count out Stipe. Maybe it's just maybe it's just a bias, I guess, because I like him so much. But man, he's got great boxing. I think technically he's probably better than Roy boxing, but Roy's just got that big power, and all he's got to land is that one big punch. I don't think this fight's going to take place on the mat as much as, people think that Stipe is going to want to get this to the floor. I think Stipe might actually try to box with him. I think he might just try to, stay technical and stay out of the way of that big right hand. If he plays his cards right, he could just outbox him for the 3 rounds and end up winning a decision. But, Big Country's been, against, much higher level fighters, than what Stipe's at right now in his career. Stipe's still young. He's got a long way to go. That kind of experience can't be, forgotten. I'm going to go with Big Country. I think that Stipe is going to end up getting caught at some point. Second or maybe even third round, I think Big Country's going to catch him with that big right hand and put him down. And that's my prediction. Big Country knockout.
All 3 of us there siding with Big Country, all by knockout. Bit different on the rounds, but we're all thinking Big Country's going to win. Okay, we move on to the main event. This wasn't the original main event. Of course, there should have been a bantamweight title fight, which unfortunately was cancelled due to injury, which was a shame. But we've got Sugar Rashad Evans versus Dan Henderson, 2 true UFC light heavyweight veterans. I mean, they've both been around the game for a long time. Obviously, Evans come off the Ultimate Fighter and has done really, really well. Has been former champion. Dan Henderson was a standout in Pride. Obviously, was a Pride champion at 2 weight classes. This fight I think this is a really hard fight to pick because Evans in his last fight did not look good at all against Little Nog. But Evans tends to be one of those guys that finds a way to win. But same with Dan Henderson. They both always find ways to win. I think Dan Henderson's the one that's more likely to get a finish because he's got the power strike. I think he's more likely to get the knockout. If it goes the distance, I think Evans is more likely to be the one to outpoint Henderson and win a decision. I think I feel this fight's a real toss-up, but I'm a real coin toss. But I am going to go for Rashad Evans to avoid any big power shots and to outbox Henderson and win a decision. But it is a really, really difficult fight for me to pick. Luke, what are your views on this fight?
I mean, it's a great fight. These two guys fighting. I mean, I love Rashad. I've watched him for a long time, and I think he probably could be a middleweight. I know that people have said that before. He's definitely not the bigger man like heavyweight, but he seems to be happy there, and he's just such a good character and an interesting guy to watch fight. It broke my heart to watch him fight John Jones and see how that went. But also, Hendo, he's a legend himself. So, for me, it's when I'm a fan here and I'm watching this fight. That both of these guys I'm a big fan of. The connection with me and Chael and Hendo as well. Like they wrestled together and they're just it's just a tough fight to decide this one. I don't see Rashad being able to take Dan Henderson down so much. Or with that much ease, and I really think it will just be on the feet this fight. With Rashad trying to be a bit more dynamic, throwing kicks and moving around a bit more. But if it goes to, like you said, if it goes to the decision, Rashad wins all day long. If he gets caught by Hendo, it could be over. But I just don't think Henderson's got it in him. With Rashad, I think he'll keep the tempo high. His last fight both these guys' last fights were disappointing. If you look at Dan Henderson's last fight, I think he came out and said it's hard to fight a guy who's in there not fighting you when he fought Machida. But go with Rashad. But I just want to see a great fight in this one. And to me, it's two of my favourite fighters fighting each other, and hopefully they can perform a little bit better than they both did in their last fights, and they can put on a show for us, and the fight will be great.
Brooks, what are your views on this fight?
Both these guys, they got strong wrestling. They both got great striking also. Obviously, Hendo is just more of a knockout artist nowadays. He's not really looking to mess around on the ground. He's just looking to land that big shot on you. And Rashad, I guess he's come out recently and said he's going to get 50 takedowns on Hendo. And, in my opinion, that would be his best bet, is just to keep on pushing for takedowns, because, if Dan hits anybody, it's lights out. But, like Luke was saying about Dan and Lyoto Machida, it's hard to fight someone that's not trying to fight you. I think Rashad Evans is going to be hungry for a win off, that disappointing performance he had against Nogueira. I think he underestimated Nogueira in that fight. I think he didn't think he was where he was at previously in his career, because I think a lot of people are looking at both Nogueiras like they're past their time now, but they're still dangerous. I think Rashad Evans comes out and he plays it super safe. I don't even know if this is going to be the most exciting fight. I'm sorry, but Hendo is going to do what he can to make it exciting. I can guarantee that. I just think Rashad's going to continually just go for takedowns while Hendo looks for the bomb. And I just think that Rashad's going to play it safe. He's going to end up getting a decision win here.
Okay, that's all three of us all going with Rashad Evans. We all agree it's going to be it's a difficult fight to pick, but we all think that Evans is going to be smart enough to stay away from the power shots and win a decision. Right, that is our views on UFC 161. As always, if you think you can do better than myself, Brooks, and UFC fighter Luke Barnatt, then go over to MMA Victor and prove it. Thank you for listening.